So I'm sitting here with my dad right now, and he has came upon a discovery, a pretty good discovery, as a matter of fact, that nobody else has figured out. Ironically,
The Book of Daniel.
the Book of Daniel, and how there's switched chapters in there. And if you don't figure those out, then you can't figure out Revelations. So, my dad is sitting here with me right now, and I'm going to ask him questions so that we can get this message out. He does not want to be seen on camera or anything because he's not trying to have publicity. He's just trying to give the message. Okay, so, Dad, what exactly does the Daniel switch mean?
It's basically where the last two chapters in the Book of Daniel has been divided in two at some point in time or another, and the bottom two halves of it, of that division, was put placed right beside the top two halves. And that's what we're seeing right now is four different chapters, but they actually should be two. So in order to see it right, or to understand it right, they have to be added back together. Chapter 11 has to be attached back to chapter 9, and chapter 12 has to be attached back to chapter 10, so that there's only two chapters instead of the four, like it is right now.
Okay, and then how did you come upon this?
Well, it was actually after I studied Bible prophecy for many years, as back starting back in the '80s, but uh, I didn't really have no kind of Shazam moment until I'd actually started seeking Jesus' face first, and I slowly went through the New Testaments like 21 times, until just going through it slow and methodologically, where I could hopefully, get a good grasp of it instead of just flying through just to say I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after that, I was in jail. I ain't gonna say what for, that ain't necessary right now, but I was in jail, and the Lord spoke to me after I'd seeked His face first. That was what was important, I guess, because that was something I never did do before that. I never actually seeked Jesus' very face. And
So you seeked his face, and then he spoke to you and told you what?
He spoke to me, just like I told you before, and He told me I was just going through the book, Bible, just kind of reading, jumping from here to there, and I stopped in the 8th chapter of Daniel for some reason. Whenever I did, I heard this voice. It was real quiet, soft, and it told me to read these chapters where your hand is sitting, which was on the 8th chapter of the book of Daniel, and that's where I started placing most of my emphasis on, is those chapters, because I was told to do so.
Okay, and why are those chapters switched around? Why have they been switched?
Well, I can't really say, but there's got to be a good reason for sure.
I mean, why did Daniel switch those chapters around? Why didn't he just keep them
Well,
together?
that's only a theory, I mean, of Daniel actually being the one who switched them around, but it, it makes logic though, because it definitely has concealed the time of the end part of the Daniel's vision. Daniel was given a dual vision, and the 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 end part of it.
The vision or the matter? Is that what you were speaking of?
I don't remember.
And I do remember what you're talking about. And then he was told to go swiftly. The Michael, or right? Am I correct? Was told to fly swiftly because he had to give him that vision. And then he was told to shut up the word. Is that why they are switched?
Oh yeah, well that's kind of a theory that I've had. That it was actually, I mean, that could have been the way that he actually, shut up the word and sealed it, meaning until the time of the end is by dividing the last two chapters, like I mentioned to you, and then taking the bottom two sections or two halves and putting them beside it, and making 4 different chapters out of it.
So if I switch those chapters and read it 9, 11, 10, and 12, what happens to Revelation?
Well, see, that's the kicker. Right now, it's hard to realize any, where things are connected up at, but whenever you make that, you put them chapters back together, something interesting happens. You'll discover that everything that's in chapter 9 and 11, which should be just one longer chapter, everything that's in there is talking about the earthly present time that's going on right now. And I believe that Daniel has called that particular time the indignation era, and that's followed by what's called the consummation era.
And the era that you're speaking of is one that commonly has been known as the past by most Christians.
Yeah, well, the indignation era, there's been several of them through history, but this Daniel's talking about one particular, or Gabriel basically, he's telling Daniel about one particular era. It's called the indignation era. It talks about it in Daniel 8:19 and
Right.
11:37, I believe.
But what I'm saying
36.
is most Christians, they believe that Daniel is the past and then the Revelation is the future.
Yeah, and I can understand how they feel that way, because I've also seen it that way myself. Prior to the good Lord speaking to me that one time, and until I actually run across this discovery about the last 4 chapters, and whenever you put them back in order like it is, it opens up a big doorway, because it becomes obvious that chapter 7 is definitely reflecting that same period in time, both them 2 periods, the indignation and the consummation era. Instead of Daniel chapter 7 talking about the past like what it's been supposed, like many people thought, it actually is explaining the present day, right here and now,
Okay?
in the Middle East, in the United States involvement with it, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia,
America.
and it tells exactly what they're doing in this era, and it tells of all the Arab kings that's fallen in this time, that's been dethroned due to that Arab Spring, and part of it's due to our we subdued 3 of them kings, 2 of them so
Right.
far, and 1 more to go.
And kings also meaning president, considering they
Right.
did not call him.
Right.
Right, gotcha.
Right.
Okay, and why don't you tell them how long you've been working on this? How many years have you been working on this?
Since 2005.
And it is 2017, so
Right. It's been a long time, and studying that way is really, by putting them chapters back together, you can not only reflect chapter 7, but you can also take that thought straight into chapter 11, because or chapter 11, I mean Revelations chapter 6, excuse me. But that's I guess that ought to be for the second video. This one's getting kind of long.
okay. Well, quick question: has anybody followed what you have been talking about?
Oh,
thus
I've got several people interested in it, but up to this point in time, I've tried to make a couple of YouTube videos, but I just wasn't that ain't my thing. I'm not a very good YouTube personality, if you will.
But we are doing this video right now because you are told to get it out there. Correct?
Right. If God gives you something, you can't just sit on it, no matter who you happen to get angry at, with you. I mean, it's either man or God, and I'd rather face man than God. God told me to give me this message, and I'm not going to quit until it becomes understood.
Good. Well, that's all for this video. And thank you, Dad.